he came past this like pack that I was stuck behind for so long. And I was like, oh my God, I have a chance. And then I just broke down. I just completely broke down at the finish line. I didn't even know if I won. I just sobbed. I was like, I came across the line, like just very emotional. A lot of people had reason to be like, no, this isn't a good idea. I mean, in my first assessment, I failed so badly. I fell off my horse. I remember the instructor or the assessor literally said to me, I don't know why you're here. The same guy allowed me to have an assessment again and gave me the green lights to race, despite a month ago he was like, she's not ready, she won't be ready this year. If he did say yes, and if people didn't give me that like faith, I wouldn't have been able to race on and there wouldn't be a story.
Today on Stronger Than You Think, we're joined by Khadijah Mellah, who is the first British hijab-wearing jockey. She grew up in Brixton, where horse riding opportunities are fairly limited. But one day, her mum found an advert in their local mosque, and that's where her love for horse riding began. That was back in 2012. And by 2019, she was competing in the Magnolia Cup. And it's fair to say the odds were against her. She was the youngest rider and she was the least experienced. But she went on to win. And she joins us today. How are you, Khadijah?
Hello, thank you for having me.
So good to have you with us. And your story is so interesting. And we don't know that much about horse riding. So it makes it even more special for us to find out a little bit more about your journey, but also horse riding in general. But firstly, what was it like growing up in Brixton?
As you can imagine, like it was very like culturally diverse. I had a lot of like my friends and family around me, which was good. I studied in Lewisham and lived in and around South London. I'm a South London girl for sure. But yeah, I can't complain. Like I was raised in a very loving household where my parents encouraged me to do loads of sports, to be active, to really push myself academically. So yeah, I can't complain.
No, Brixton is a vibe as well. It's so cool around there. I love it.
100%. Brixton. To be fair, horse riding, Brixton, you wouldn't necessarily see them together.
Does it go hand in hand, does
Not
it?
really. Like maybe, I don't know, steel pans, like a bit of like poetry. Like that's more of the Brixton vibe, like definitely at the moment, but not horses. But there's a lot going on in Brixton. It's a very busy place.
Well, it seems that there was some opportunities for horse riding, which came about with your mum finding just a random advert in your local mosque. So talk us through what happened there.
I'd been looking to ride horses for a while, and it felt like divine intervention that a horse riding club would even be in a 5 to 10 mile radius. I remember talking to my mum about it, and she's like, yeah, I saw this leaflet for this place called Ebony Horse Club. And I was like, that sounds like a theatre group, Mum. Like, I don't believe you. And then we went on a walk around and I saw the horses and I was like, oh, they're real.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God, I need to sign up. But there was a catchment area because it's a charity and we were right on the cusp of it because it was a very tight catchment area because the demand was so high. So I was on the waiting list for a year. And then I spoke to my dad and I was like, why haven't they got back to me? And my dad went in again and was like, is she still on the waiting list? Like, how far down? And they were like, sorry, we've lost that application, but we'll put her back on the waiting list. And then I waited another year. Yeah. And I was waiting for basically 2 years because I applied when I was 10. But I got riding and I was like, the rest is history, you know?
It's a good job your dad went back in.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. My family, like my parents really drove my like extracurricular activities, especially my horse riding.
So once you got into it, how did you actually find it? Like when you finally got that chance to get into horse riding, like how?
It was everything I hoped. Like I was like, this is unreal. I'm living my like unicorn dream. Like I used to read like these books growing up. I watched Spirit, like the film, and I was just like the interaction man with horse and like girl with horse. I was like, oh, I'm just
That's me.
That's me right now, you know. And I used to like ask them to volunteer extra days, and they were like, free help, yeah, sure, come in. And I picked up really quickly like everything around horses as well as riding them because there's obviously a lot more to it. And I feel like getting the opportunity to look after and understand horses and their health, their behaviour is almost just as important as riding them, and they go hand in hand. And Ebony provided that opportunity. So and I'd done like riding lessons like in Kent like once every 2 months as like a treat. My parents used to drive us all down and they'd literally just like plonk you on a horse, walk you around, and you're just a bit of a passenger. And like at Ebony, they were teaching you how to like interact, ride and communicate with the horse. So that was like the start of like learning the skills of riding a horse and that sort of like relationship.
I can totally relate to you on this because when I was younger, I remember going horse riding for the first time, and I grew up in like the country, and I was so excited. I loved horses myself as well. And I remember actually feeling so sore after getting like my first riding lesson under my belt, and I was like, oh my word, I can't actually feel my legs. And then we had this thing where, lucky for me, because it was so expensive, I did like chores. I went and I did the poo picking and just helped out around the yard and helped get the horses ready for their lessons at the horse riding school. In exchange for lessons, because that was the only way I could continue doing it. And unfortunately, it became too expensive. But how did you manage the financials? Because you say it's a charity. Was there any help? Because I think that's quite a barrier for a lot of people, how expensive it is. And rightly so, because they're not cheap to take care of.
The reason why I didn't make any progress initially, because I had an interest in horses from day. Like, I was just like a very animal girl. Like, I just wanted, and like horses were the final boss. I was like, I want to have a horse at some point. It was just impossible. And my dad was like, dream big, but it's not going to happen. Like, and he'd drive me out to Kent, and we would ride a horse for literally like 30 minutes. It'd be like 25, 30 quid. And like, my dad comes from a very working class background, like immigrated to this country about 30 years ago. Like, his priority was like, provide food for the family, a roof, and an education. Like, having the most expensive hobby was not on his list. Like,
it was like, do you have to do this?
Yeah. And then obviously, because I had an interest in horse riding, so did my siblings, and they're younger than me. So he was like, now I have to pay for 3. Like, financial burden central. And I was like, I felt really bad, but also like, when he could, he'd treat us to a riding lesson. But obviously, it wouldn't be as involved as I'd like, and I was very eager, I'm very impatient. I was like, get me off the lead rope, like, I could do this on my own.
I want to gallop now.
Definitely can't do it on my own yet. It just felt a bit frustrating, like having that one riding lesson and just basically being sat there and being led around. And I was like, I'm appreciative of it, obviously, because I get to interact with the horse, but there was so much more I wanted to do. And Ebony, again, it's a bit of a miracle that I could even have the opportunity, or that it existed, because it's so like beyond everyone's imagination. And the fact that I live near it, it's the first of its kind, is like the stars have aligned, like so many stars have aligned. But yeah, the lessons when I first started at Ebony were 7 quid for 45 minutes. So
amazing.
Like, I could hustle up 7 quid, you know what I mean? And now they're, due to the fundraising, we've managed to achieve the cost to go down to £3 a session. Yeah, I know. Imagine getting on a horse for 3 quid.
That's amazing, making it so accessible for people like yourself and other people as well. So many people would love that opportunity, but it just feels like it's out of reach for financial reasons.
Yeah.
So to hear that there's places that people can go where it is affordable, like,
the demand.
I bet you didn't leave, did you?
No.
Like another lesson.
They literally had to say to me, like, you're now an alumni. And I was like, do I have to be?
So what happened from that moment when you started riding at Ebony? How did you get from there to where you are today?
I was obsessed. Like, it's an obsession. Horses will always be part of my life. And as soon as I was given a small like door or a small opportunity to ride horses and really learn, I like literally didn't let go. I basically volunteered every week I could. Any opportunity, like any trip or any competition, I'd be like at the forefront of it, being like, yeah, me. Just got really stuck in, and I was really eager, built relationships with my coaches, built relationships with the owners, the managers, making sure that I was very much seen. And yeah, I was a big personality at Ebony, I think. It definitely was instrumental to like my growth as a teenager as well. And I definitely had a bit of like a turbulent time, because I got into a private school in year 7, which was fine initially, but obviously I stuck out very quickly, and like I was a bit ignorant to it in the first couple years of school. But then it got to like year 11 and like exam season, and like it became very apparent that I was just very different, which was a bit difficult to deal with as a young Muslim woman. Like, there's a lot of identity issues that I definitely faced. And I definitely feel like having horse riding and going to that space where I didn't feel like I was out of place, because it's Brixton. All of the people I was riding with were like from a similar background to me. And it's weird to say that, I felt very, very included and represented in a horse riding club. as opposed to school, but that was the case. And yeah, it was a very safe space for me. And yeah, and horses are healing. Like being able to be around horses just enriched my life like exponent. Like it's just, yeah. I could talk about horses for years.
I'm actually scared of horses. That's exactly, yeah.
Oh, that's it.
Maybe I just need some healing vibes now.
Have you never been on a horse?
I used to have a little pony, but that's...
You had a pony?
Yeah, when I was little, but that's about it. And
Really?
else, I just
That
think
is
I
so
could do horse riding,
cool.
but
What was your pony called?
Bonnie.
Aww.
That's such a lovely name.
What put you off?
I don't know, you just can't read them, can you? Or can you? Like,
You can.
How would you? I just don't understand
trust them.
how you bond with them, like you're saying, like communicating with horses. I just would not know where to start with that. Never mind, like horse riding. I just find it fascinating.
To be fair, there are horses you will get along with, just like people.
Yeah.
There are horses you will absolutely not get along with. Like, it's an immediate vibe you get off and you're like, oh, I don't feel safe.
Can you just talk to us a little bit about your experiences at school then, and the differences that you felt with your horse riding club and also with the people that you were around at school? How did they make you feel?
I got into a private school on a bursary scholarship scheme. My parents paid, I think, 5 to 10% of the school fees, and the school covered the rest. And yeah, initially I was very active, got involved in all the sports, because in primary school we did netball and football, and maybe a bit of cricket. Ooh, that was exciting. And then I went to Sydenham, and I was like, I had all these different. Like I did athletics for the first time, and I did loads of throwing. I loved javelin, and I did London schools. I did like all these activities that I didn't really have an opportunity to do, and I got really stuck in. And as I said, the first couple of years was absolutely fine. I was cruising, studying, it was all fine. And then it got to a stage where it's like you're more self-aware, and I just made it was very apparent to me that I was so different to the girls around me. And I'm very outgoing, and I didn't mind it. But then I realized that a lot of my friends had different activities, priorities, doing different things on holidays. And that gap was just so apparent. Not only in terms of class, but just visibly. And yeah, it was a tough time because culturally as well, my parents have different ideals and priorities and morals. And I feel like the girls around me had different opinions on things, and we just clashed quite a few times. And it got to a point where I was adopting their ideologies and then coming back home with it. And then my parents were like, why are you thinking like this? And I'm like, I thought this was normal, it's just very confusing. And a lot of people are like, you're from Peckham, you don't sound like you're from Peckham. And I'm like, I spent 7 years in private school. But yeah, it was definitely a unique experience. I was definitely minority at school. Not only just as a person of colour or a woman of colour, but as a hijabi as well. So it's layers. But yeah, I definitely feel like it made me now a more secure person. I still obviously have my wobbles, but I feel like to get through private school, you have to be a strong character or personality. Either you shine or you just disappear. And I feel like I ended up being the biggest personality as a result of being so different.
I feel like that's a real positive.
Yeah, it worked out well, but obviously it took a lot of building and a lot of difficult conversations with my family, my friends, and a lot of looking inwards, I think.
Yeah, and staying true to who you are.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's so many people trying to influence you, and also you're very young. So it's a time where you are so heavily influenced.
Yeah.
Was there anyone else who looked like you?
There was a girl that came in for a year, really hated the school, left. But that year that she was there, we definitely she was a hijabi, so we had loads in common, and it was really refreshing to have someone to relate to. But yeah, she did not enjoy her time, but she ended up somewhere else, bless her. But yeah.
So if we go back to 2012, you started horse riding. We'll backtrack a little bit.
Deviating completely.
No, it's so nice because it's actually really nice to hear about your upbringing and what got you to this place. 2019, when you're competing at the Magnolia Cup. Firstly, can you tell us a little bit more about the Magnolia Cup and what kind of people compete there, and also how you found yourself in that position?
The Magnolia Cup is an annual event. It's quite a big event on the racing calendar in terms of like amateur charity races. It's very unique, and it's at Goodwood Racecourse, which is quite a big race course. And the race specifically was to try and encourage women from like different backgrounds to try and like, you know, start a racing journey and give racing a go, which is what I ended up doing. But yeah, it's a very unique race, and there's quite a lot of media around it because normally the other races are like people have worked years and years and years and like grafted. So the opportunity came at the club at Ebony, and they were like, who would be up for it? And there were only 2 girls that were like age, like you had to be 18, and I was a few months away from turning 18. So they asked me, and they said, you're going to be 18 soon. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah. That sounds super fun. But I had like genuinely no idea what I was signing up for. I thought it'd be like a fun, like in a field, like, you know, just get from A to B, off you go. Like,
Count me in.
yeah. I
Not
was
for
like,
anything.
yeah, I was like, yeah, easy. I'll jump on a horse and go fast. And then they were like, no, you need to train for it. And I was like, why would you need to train? Just jump on and go. Do you know what I mean? And like everyone assumes like riding a racehorse is like pretty straightforward. So you just get on, the horse does the work, and you just try and hope for the best and stop at the end. You know, like
Hold on for your life.
like,
No, grit your
stay
teeth.
on.
Go for it.
Yeah. And I definitely learnt the hard way that that's not the case. It's very, very physically demanding, very emotionally demanding as well, because it's like to qualify to race, you have to do assessments. And like a lot of riding racehorses isn't actually going fast. It's trying to settle a horse, calm it down, and go at a speed that you want to go. So a lot of it is actually just like communication, making sure that you have the physical ability, but also like the skill and capability to not panic if things do go wrong. But literally, in like a lot of my training is like, don't go fast, like chill out, you know, like because like an athlete, you're not going to go at 100% every day. And when you're riding racehorses, you need to train them every day. So you're always trying to build their fitness sort of like incrementally. So you're going at 50%, 60%. My boss says this all the time, like today I need you to go at 60% with a horse. So you don't want to be going flat out all the time. For the race, yes. But that's one race. Like beforehand, you need to learn to be safe and communicate and have control. It's really easy to go fast. Like the skill is to actually go slow. And I didn't know that. I just like my journey into racing is very unique because normally you go through like a 11-week program at a racing school. Then you go into like working on a racing yard. You do like a year's worth of experience. And then you go for your race. I did it in 2 months. Do you know
That's
how
what you're
mental?
talking about.
2 to 3 months. And I was doing
Wow.
like A-levels at the same time. It was just a very hectic time.
Yeah, how do you even manage that? Like, never mind doing your A-levels and stuff, but going into that 2 months where you're supposed to be doing it over a long period of time. Like for you mentally, how did you even...
Just pure ignorance is bliss, you know, like I didn't really realise what I was getting myself. Like when I started, the first horse I sat on, I just went 1,000,000 miles per hour and I was like, is this normal? And then I overtook someone, I was like, this is not normal. And I thought I was gonna die. And I was like, I don't know if this is for me, but then I just like bit my tongue because I was like, people have already invested loads of time and energy into creating this like training plan, and like there were cameras like documenting everything, and I was like, this is so humiliating. And I was like, no, it's fine, we'll just give it one more chance. And I got on the second horse and she was amazing. Like the difference between the first horse I sat on, Hi Ho Silver, and then Capla Huntress, I was like, when it goes right, it goes so well and it's so beautiful that I'm like, it's worth all the shocking moments that I'm gonna have. But yeah, my route into racing was very not like, it was very untraditional. As I said, you're supposed to do the 11-week program. I did a 5-week program because they were like, she needs help.
Sometimes people have a natural ability at things, and it sounds like you just threw yourself in and you just are able to do these things. I think sometimes people just find themselves in situations where they just are so good at it naturally.
I genuinely don't think naturally I was that good, but I just stuck at it because I was like, I really want to. Also, like I was doing my A-levels. I just fasted Ramadan. It was just like a really rubbish time, like not rubbish time, but it was a really difficult time. And I definitely feel like racing was like an escapism. I was like, something I can do that's just for me. Like I don't need to worry about like my revision. I don't need to worry about like fasting and like my chaotic sleep pattern. I could just get on a horse, even if it goes bad. Like, but when I did that 5-week program, it was like an intensive like crash course into racing. I'd be riding 2 horses in the morning, cycle back. Yeah, so get up at 5:30, cycle down to my racing yard, ride 2 race horses, cycle back down, ride another race horse, have lunch, do a fitness session or a simulation session, and then be like knocked out at 9 p.m. straight. Like, and I did that back to back 6 days a week for 5 weeks. Yeah, that was my make or break moment. And I think that 5-week program, like I really pushed myself, physically, mentally, in every aspect, and it really like helped. And that, I think, the relationship I had with my horse and that 5-week program is the reason why I made it to the race and won the race.